Hey folks, everything new under the sun. In the previous video, I spoke of the reversing of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and that Satan is a great deceiver, and he does everything that is kind of opposite to what God is. He is, uh, uh, or he will possess the Antichrist, which is the opposite of Christ. That's the actual meaning of it, the opposite of Christ. So it makes sense that he does things opposite, and he tries to duplicate what God does, but in an opposite sort of manner. And I want to talk about that a bit more detail than I did when I spoke of it in the prior video. So we have these four horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation 6. The first horse is deception, the white horse. And it reads in Revelation 6 on the right-hand side there. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, a noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. The second seal. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given him thereon to take peace from the earth. So you see that second seal, war. Peace is being removed from the earth. And that they should kill one another. Mankind is going to kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. The third seal. Come and see, and I behold, lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him, and a pair of balances in his hand. So this speaks to the monetary system, weighing values and amounts. There's going to be economic collapse, I believe, during this third seal. And with it comes famine. Verse 6, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts, a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Now a measure of wheat for a penny. A measure of wheat was how much wheat you would need to make a loaf of bread for that day. It's basically enough food for the day. And so basically you take all your wages for that day, and you can afford just to buy the food that you need to eat. That doesn't mean expenses like gasoline or heat or buying clothes. That you can only afford just enough to eat for the day. What is interesting there is, I think, as a side note, is that the Lord always provides. You notice that? You may not have a gasoline or electricity or cell phone access or all these other luxuries of life, but you notice that the Lord doesn't let it get so bad at this point. You still have enough food to eat for the day. So there's a good side and a bad side to that, but it will be economic collapse. It will be very, very hard. And like I say, you'll have only enough to eat for that day. You'll have nothing else out of working hard all day long. The fourth seal. And I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and him that sat on him was death. So the fourth seal, the pale horse, pestilence, and a quarter of mankind dies. Now Satan is the great counterfeiter, the great deceiver. He is the great liar. And in the end, coming shortly, we know that he's going to come up with an antichrist, an opposite of Christ, who he wants the world to worship. It's a counterfeit Jesus, and this is what he wants. He wants to be worshipped himself. He wants to be, everything about Satan is opposite of God. He wants to be worshipped himself, so he's going to copy God in sort of a way with the Antichrist, a direct copy, a counterfeit of the real. 2 Corinthians 4:4 says, underneath the image there, in their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds. There's great deception in the last days. Do we see deception around us starting? And that, so it blinds the minds of unbelievers. If you are not a believer in Christ, you're susceptible to this blinding, and you will be blinded. You will be tricked. You will be deceived by Satan. If you're a believer, you read the end of the book. You know what's coming. So you can see this happening and rolling out before your eyes. But it says, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. So what do they worship instead in the last days? They worship the image of the beast, the Antichrist figure. Instead of worshiping God, they worship this Antichrist figure. You see how Satan's counterfeiting? He's switching it all around so that you worship him and not God. Mankind will be required to worship the image of the beast. This is all part of taking the mark of the beast. And so this is, again, a counterfeiting and an opposite of what should be happening. Satan does things backwards. Satan counterfeits everything. From trying to create hybrid soulless beings. I read an article about China, how they were trying to, they actually impregnated an ape with human embryos in an effort to create basically subhuman, soulless humans who they could then harvest organs from. And this was what was happening in the days of Noah with the DNA manipulation and the gene manipulation. Remember, Noah and his family, they were pure in those days. And I think they were pure in gene code. And that's why God put an end to it. He has a red line, and that red line is when people start messing with the DNA, the gene code, and start causing troubles in the human race and mixing species, which God never intended. And that's why God had to kill everybody on the earth, save Noah's family, who was righteous and pure in his days. All right, so but that's what Satan's trying to do. Satan's trying to basically kill you, and also create a race, of humans or creatures that will then, without souls, worship him, because he wants to be God. He wants to be like God. He wants to be as God. This is what the Tower of Babel was. Man trying to be like God. This is what the point of the Antichrist is, sitting on the throne in the third temple, causing the abomination of desolation. Is because he wants to be worshipped as God. And this world leader that is coming will force that worship on him when you accept the mark of the beast. So don't do that. Remember, the unbelievers will be deceived. The believers will not be deceived. They'll know what's coming, and they will have seen this coming. So is there an example in the Bible of a counterfeiting what Jesus is already doing or has done? And, I mean, there's many of them. One example is that of Exodus. So that's the story of Pharaoh's magicians in Exodus 7 and 8, when Moses and Aaron confront the Pharaoh in Egypt, demanding that he free God's people, the Israelites, from slavery. Moses and Aaron performed miracles to confirm their message. Remember, turning the water into blood, the gnats and the frogs, and turning the staff into a snake, etc. Moses and Aaron performed miracles to confirm their message from God. But Pharaoh had these magicians, and these magicians were able to duplicate several of the miracles that Moses and Aaron did. Now, not quite to the same caliber or extent, but Satan was able to counterfeit a lot of them, enough so that Pharaoh's heart was hardened in those days. Is there an example? Do we know that some power, some figure will perform signs and wonders in the last days as well, counterfeiting what God is ultimately going to fulfill? Yeah, the Antichrist will be given power to do signs and wonders. It says here, and he doeth, this is from Revelation 13, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that thou should make an image of the beast that had the wound by a sword and did live. Again, a counterfeit of Jesus being wounded by the sword on the cross, being stabbed and run through in that manner. Likewise, this Antichrist figure will be stabbed by the sword, but he won't die like Jesus did on the cross, as Satan would have you believe. This person, wounded by the sword, will live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So there's going to be worship of the beast. Satan is a great counterfeiter. He does, as much as he can that God has already done or will do, but in opposite order, in opposite direction, and of course to bring him glory and not to give glory to God. Now again, the master counterfeiter and doing things in reverse in terms of Satan and what he's going to do in these last days. Remember backmasking? When you would listen to a song one way and it would say one thing, and then you would play it in reverse. It was a big thing in the 80s. And you can Google it, backmasking. There's lots of songs where there's backmasking occurring, and there's lots of subtle messages or not so subtle messages in the backmasking that if you listen to it in the opposite direction, you hear that message. So I think this is one of the things that maybe Satan uses. Can we prove that? Satanism, the quote-unquote religion of Satanism. Well, there's two laws in Satanism, as I've found. The first law is the law of reversal, and it's the crux of Satanism, apparently. The Black Mass. So they hold a Black Mass, which is the opposite of a Catholic Mass. The entire Roman Catholic liturgy of the Mass is performed backwards, or in reverse. Everything is read backwards, or in reverse speech. The cross in the Black Mass is hung upside down, blasphemous. Reverse over the satanic altar. The cross of Jesus Christ is hung upside down over the satanic altar. The Antichrist, second bullet point there. The Antichrist, this signals a reverse or direct opposite of Christ. Heaven is the reversal of hell. Heaven is up, hell is down. God is light, the devil is dark. So you see all these opposites happening, and Satan doing things in reverse, just like the Black Mass there. Everything is in reverse. So could it be that maybe these four horsemen of the apocalypse you see on the right-hand side, maybe these are occurring in reverse as Satan tries to get the world ready for his Antichrist figure, to condition them, to set them up for that, to introduce the lie, the great deception upon them, which God is allowing, to get them to a point where they accept a world leader and a mark of the beast system, to the point where he rules and reigns, quote unquote, for 7 years, at the middle point where he causes the abomination of desolation. He's going to tell the truth to the human populace, but only at the midpoint of the tribulation, the 3.5 year mark, where he finally comes out and he sits on the throne in the third temple and says, I am God, worship me. But there's going to be a requirement to worship him at the mark of the beast initially. You're going to have to pledge allegiance to the Antichrist when you accept that mark. So what I've been saying all along, and this is my timeline of return to the Lord, we saw COVID, and this is a copy paste of my timeline. We saw COVID there at the beginning of 2020, right, or end of 2019, right? So there's COVID happening, and then I said, well, you know what? There's economic collapse going to occur somewhere in here, social collapse, civil unrest, Antichrist. Don't know exactly where. It's somewhere in there, but we're going to start seeing this come to the forefront: social collapse, social unrest, violence, and then what? And then I suggested that, well, there's going to be some war. There's going to be Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus, Ezekiel 38 and 39, a dual fulfillment there, but the first fulfillment may be taking place somewhere in there. And then the third temple. And I've always said there has to be some war before the world accepts, or significant violence before the world accepts a world government, and more specifically, a one world leader and a mark of the beast system. The world's going to have to change a lot to get the world citizens of the world to a point where they accept this. And it means they're going to be in desperation. It means they're going to be in economic collapse. There's not going to be any food. There's not going to be any jobs. There's going to be war. And the whole world is going to be desperate, so much so that if you're not a believer, you're going to accept anything, and you're going to accept this mark of the beast because he promises to fix the world. And he apparently will do so in some fashion for the first 3.5 years. Right? So this was the initial outlook of it. But of course, the tribulation seals aren't broken until that first half of the 7-year period. And so that doesn't come until after all these things: COVID, Isaiah 17, Gog Magog, etc. And third temple sacrifices have to start up before the seals are broken. Because I believe that starts in the first 3.5 years. Well, come to find out, remember, if Satan rather, reverses everything, if it's truly the law of reversal as it relates to Satanism, and if Satan is doing everything that he has done in the past, where he duplicates and deceives and counterfeits God, well, maybe he'll do that in the last days, as well as he is warming everybody up to accept the mark of the beast and accept this person who is brought back to life after being wounded by the sword, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles. So there's miracles coming that he had to do in the power of that he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to those that dwell on the earth that thou should make an image to the beast that they had that had the wound and did live. And he gave power to give life unto the image of the beast. There's counterfeiting here. Again, bringing someone back to life. That's what Jesus did. But Satan's going to counterfeit that in the last days. All right? And it's going to be backwards, however, just like the first law of Satanism, the law of reversal. So with that understood, what does that look like in maybe the last days, where the four horsemen of the apocalypse are in reverse order to set the world up for an Antichrist figure? Let's look at this. If you were Satan and you were leading up to the revealing of the Antichrist, what would you do? Well, you'd have to prepare the world for what's to come. You'd have to get them used to obeying. You'd have to really take away all their wealth and their food, so that they were desperate, so that they would by default obey, because they would have nothing else. If they have money and power, well, who's going to obey the Antichrist in that case, right? So he has to bring the world to its knees to set up what he thinks is his kingdom to come, and the worship of him as God. He has to bring every man in the world down below his level, so that he can hold himself up as God and pretend he is God. And so look at these backwards. Well, if in 2019, 2020, the pandemic started, could that be the fourth horseman? Remember, the fourth horseman is the pestilence, and a quarter of mankind dies. Now, Satan can never do things to the extent that God does, to the full extent. So maybe it's 10% or 1% of what the four horsemen of the apocalypse will actually occur. But how many people have died from the pandemic? There's maybe some interesting calculation there. Is it 10%, 5%, 1% of a quarter of mankind? I don't know. I don't know what the actual number is, but it might be something interesting to look at. But look at it this way. The four horsemen of the apocalypse in reverse. The fourth seal, then the third seal, then the second seal, making way for the first seal, the rider, the Antichrist, and the great deception, which everybody will swallow hook, line, and sinker, because they've been prepared for it by the pandemic and the troubles and the psychological warfare. And then the famine that comes with the third horse, which is the black horse in Revelation 6:5-6. And then comes along war. Notice how these are getting closer together. The fourth horseman rode maybe back here in terms of what Satan is trying to counterfeit. And then look how they increase in frequency and intensity. Now it's been a year or so, a year and a half, getting on 2 years. Now the famines, the supply chains are breaking down. Look at that. Remember the video I did about China hoarding all the food? All right, then in close proximity, war and violence breaks out. The second horse, fourth horse, third horse, second horse, and then the first horse here, kicking off the 7-year period, which is the first horse, the Antichrist, with a crown and coming to conquer. What's significant about the first seal? Well, deception. Deception is everything about the first horse. And that's going to then kick off the 7-year period, which could start next year, could start this year, actually. Between September this year, September next year, it's the Shemitah year, the 7th of the 7 years. Ending that off and starting a new 7 years after the Shemitah year, which could again be the kickoff of the 7-year period. And then once the first horse rides, according to Satan's counterfeit horses, then we have the real tribulation seals broken in the first 3.5 years. Now, the first horse, the Antichrist, he thinks he's coming in to conquer, but now it's going to end up being destruction and tribulation for all the people in the world, and the purpose of which is to get them to recognize Jesus Christ as their Savior, the true Messiah. But so Satan's going to counterfeit all these things, and the world's going to think, it could not get worse than what just happened. Let's accept this Antichrist leader, and he's going to fix it. Come to find out, the real seals of the tribulation are going to be broken, and then we will have the war, and then comes the famine, and then comes the pestilence in that order. Specifically, I believe that order will actually occur when God allows these seals to be broken, when these seals are broken by the Lamb, and so these will happen in order, in a time sequence, I believe, and increasing in frequency and intensity over that first 3.5 year period, which is the true fulfillment of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and not this fake fulfillment that Satan conjured up to get people to move in his direction as it relates to deception of the Antichrist. So very interesting. Pestilence, could that be the pandemic? Famine, supply chains, the weather trouble, war and violence in the world. Then the white horse, the one world leader, is going to come to save us from these things, and he will require allegiance, worship even. You'll be required to take the mark of the beast. You won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. And if you take the mark of the beast, that's it. You've made your decision. You have made a decision for eternity apart from Christ, and that is known as hell. The definition of hell is an eternity apart from God, and that's apart from love, peace, and joy, all the good things, light, all the good things that God brings. You're choosing to live in eternity away from everything that is God and that is good in this world, and you're choosing to live in darkness. So don't choose that. Make your decision now. Do not accept the mark of the beast, which will be coming, I think, over next couple of months or years here. We're going to see and watch it. But the reversal of the four horsemen, let me know what you think about that. Does that make sense? Can you see that occurring? To me, I think this timeline is very interesting, and there seems to be precedent with the first law of reversal in the religion of Satanism, and all the examples biblically of Satan doing things, counterfeiting things, doing things opposite to what God does, just to show that he has power and to make it look like he has thought it up and that he has new ideas. Satan doesn't have any new ideas. He's just trying to kill as many people as possible. So let me know down in the comments what you think of that, and I'll be interested to see, and maybe we can do a bunch of comments, and then I'll do a video, comments on comments about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Be prepared. Things are getting very, very interesting in these last days.